September in the Northern Hemisphere is supposed to be a gentle transition from summer's heat to autumn's cool embrace. It's a time when the air grows crisp, the days shorten, and nature begins its slow transformation. People look forward to the familiar rituals, the first hints of color in the trees, the scent of fallen leaves, and the comforting return of sweaters and warm drinks. For generations, this seasonal shift has marked a predictable rhythm in our lives, a reassuring sign that the world is turning as it should. But on September 21, 2025, North America faces a weather story that's anything but typical. Instead of the expected calm, the continent is caught in the grip of a meteorological anomaly, one that defies the patterns we've come to rely on. Meteorologists are sounding alarms, and communities are bracing for the unexpected. Instead of crisp mornings and turning leaves, a relentless heat wave has gripped the continent, shattering records and delaying the arrival of fall. Cities from coast to coast are sweltering under unseasonably high temperatures, with thermometers soaring far above what's normal for this time of year. Fields that should be cooling are instead baking under an unforgiving sun, and people everywhere are searching for relief. This isn't just a warm spell, it's a dome of high pressure, an atmospheric phenomenon that traps heat and blocks the usual flow of cooler air. This dome is fueling instability, creating a pressure cooker effect that's rewriting expectations for what September should feel like. The result is a landscape where the familiar signs of autumn are nowhere to be found. The clash between lingering summer warmth and advancing cold fronts has created a volatile atmosphere, primed for severe storms. As cooler air masses attempt to push in, they collide with the entrenched heat, sparking powerful thunderstorms, sudden downpours, and even the threat of tornadoes in some regions. The weather is unpredictable, and communities are on edge, watching the skies for signs of what might come next. Across the US and Canada, the usual signs of autumn are missing, replaced by a sense of uncertainty and unrest. Parks that should be blanketed in gold and red remain stubbornly green, and city streets feel more like midsummer than the threshold of fall. People are left wondering when, or if, the season will finally change. The heat wave, severe storms, and even distant tropical systems are all interconnected, forming a complex puzzle of atmospheric behavior. Weather experts are tracking not just local events, but how these patterns ripple across the continent, influencing everything from rainfall to wind patterns and even the paths of hurricanes far out at sea. This September is a powerful reminder our planet's weather is more unpredictable and more extreme than ever before. The boundaries between seasons are blurring, and the forces shaping our climate are growing more complex. From parched earth to sudden floods, the extremes are becoming the new normal, challenging our ability to adapt and respond. As we explore the events of this remarkable month, we're witnessing not just isolated incidents but a new, evolving reality. The story of September 2025 is a wake-up call, a vivid illustration of how quickly the familiar can become unfamiliar, and how the unexpected is now part of our everyday experience. The journey ahead will reveal not only the science behind these changes, but also the resilience and adaptability of the people living through them. The culprit behind this autumn upheaval? It's not just a passing front or a brief warm spell. Instead, we're witnessing a rare and persistent weather anomaly that's rewriting the script for what fall should feel like across much of North America. At the heart of this phenomenon is a stubborn ridge of high pressure, firmly anchored over western Hudson Bay. This system acts like a massive atmospheric wall, blocking cooler air from the north and relentlessly pumping warm, humid air deep into the continent. The result? A dome of heat that refuses to budge, stretching from the Gulf Coast all the way to central Canada. Instead of the crisp, refreshing nights and gentle breezes we expect in September, places like the Missouri Ozarks and southern Minnesota are sweltering in mid-90s heat, temperatures that would be remarkable even in midsummer, let alone at the start of fall. For many, it's a jarring contrast to the usual seasonal transition. Even after sunset, the heat lingers. Overnight, temperatures barely dip, offering little relief for people, plants, and animals. The relentless warmth disrupts sleep, strains air conditioning systems, and leaves communities searching for ways to cope. This isn't just a fleeting event, the heat wave has persisted for weeks on end. The delay in fall foliage is striking, trees remain stubbornly green, and the usual explosion of autumn color is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, energy use soars as people try to stay cool, putting extra pressure on power grids. The effects ripple far and wide. From the parched Canadian prairies to the withered crops in the eastern U.S., agriculture is taking a hit. Farmers face tough decisions as heat and drought stress their fields, and daily routines are upended by the unseasonable conditions. And the outlook isn't promising. Long-term forecasts show little relief in sight, with above-normal temperatures expected to linger well into late September. Meteorologists warn that this pattern could persist, keeping the region locked in a cycle of heat and dryness. This prolonged heat is challenging our very definition of fall. The familiar markers of the season, cool air, vibrant leaves, cozy evenings, are being replaced by a stubborn, summer-like grip. It's a powerful reminder of how locked-in weather patterns can reshape entire seasons and force us to rethink what's normal. Ultimately, this is a vivid example of how a single atmospheric feature can upend expectations across a continent, leaving millions to adapt to a fall that feels anything but familiar. When warm, moist air surges northward from the Gulf of Mexico and collides with a powerful front of cooler, drier air sweeping down from Canada, the atmosphere becomes a battleground. This invisible clash of air masses is the spark that can ignite some of the most intense weather on Earth. The stage is set for severe weather. Towering clouds begin to form, the sky darkens, and the air feels charged with anticipation. It's a recipe for chaos, and it all starts with the meeting of these contrasting air masses. As a low-pressure trough pushed east from the Rockies, it collided with the relentless heat dome gripping the central U.S. This collision didn't just trigger isolated storms, it unleashed a sprawling outbreak with lines of thunderstorms racing across the plains and Midwest, lighting up Doppler radar screens and sending meteorologists into high alert. From the Dakotas to Texas and stretching as far east as Illinois and Indiana, entire communities scrambled to prepare. Residents secured their homes, listened for the wail of storm sirens, and watched the skies anxiously as the threat of dangerous weather loomed. The boundary between these clashing air masses became a breeding ground for explosive weather. Towering cumulonimbus clouds mushroomed upward, their tops reaching the stratosphere, while lightning flickered within their dark cores. The energy released was immense, fueling violent winds and torrential downpours. Each day brought new threats as the trough advanced eastward. Forecasts shifted constantly, keeping millions of people on edge. Outdoor events were canceled, schools monitored weather alerts, and families made emergency plans, never knowing what the next day might bring. The ongoing clash of air masses fueled a relentless, multi-day outbreak of severe storms. This wasn't just a single night of bad weather, it was a sustained assault, driven by the energy imbalance created by the persistent heat wave. The atmosphere's desperate attempt to restore balance unleashed chaos, damaging straight-line winds that toppled trees and power lines, hailstones that battered crops and cars, and the ever-present risk of tornadoes spinning down from the clouds. This was not a single isolated event, but a prolonged battle between the forces of summer and the first hints of autumn. For days, the weather refused to settle, with wave after wave of storms sweeping across the landscape. September's lingering warmth didn't just delay the arrival of fall, it supercharged the storms that followed, turning an ordinary seasonal transition into a dramatic and dangerous display of nature's power. The storms that erupted weren't just rain, they packed a punch. Meteorologists warned of damaging winds, large hail, and even isolated tornadoes. Hailstones big enough to dent cars and destroy crops fell across the plains, while straight-line winds snapped trees and downed power lines. Though tornadoes were rare, the threat added anxiety for those in the path. Some areas received much-needed rain, but the relief was uneven. Many places stayed dry. For communities caught in the crosshairs, a tranquil autumn afternoon turned into a scene of destruction. The volatility of this September storm season was a stark reminder of nature's power. As mid-September arrived, the pattern of extremes showed no sign of letting up. The heat wave persisted across the eastern U.S. and Canadian prairies, keeping summer alive well into fall. In the Midwest, increased moisture promised some relief, with forecasts of 1 to 2 inches of rain for drought-stricken areas. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Alaska, Yukon, and British Columbia, the same atmospheric setup brought heavy, early-season snow. The continent was split sweltering heat in the east, wintry snow in the northwest. This dramatic contrast highlighted the complexity of North America's weather, with summer, autumn, and winter conditions unfolding simultaneously. It was a vivid lesson in the scale and diversity of weather extremes. Looking ahead, meteorologists saw signs of change for late September. The stubborn high-pressure ridge was expected to weaken, allowing the storm track to shift south. This new pattern promised rain for the Pacific Northwest, Rockies, Plains, and Ohio Valley. Welcome news for parched farmland. The jet stream's dip would finally usher in cooler, more seasonable air, hinting at autumn's long-awaited arrival. But with the rain came new risks, the potential for severe storms and heavy downpours. Still, the break in the heat wave signaled a turning point, as the atmosphere began to reset. For many, the forecast of storms and cooler air was a hopeful sign that autumn was finally on its way. While North America battled extremes, meteorologists kept a close eye on the Atlantic. September is peak hurricane season, and a new tropical wave was intensifying as it crossed the Atlantic. Forecasts showed it could become a hurricane, but most models predicted it would curve north, sparing the Caribbean and U.S. coast. This fortunate track was thanks to a weakness in the Bermuda-Azores High, steering storms away from land. The pattern matched long-range outlooks, with most systems expected to stay out at sea. Unlike past years when hurricanes barreled toward the coast, this season's steering currents offered a rare reprieve. For now, millions along the Atlantic could breathe a sigh of relief. In the Pacific, tropical activity was quieter but persistent. Instead of one major storm, several low-probability systems dotted the east and central Pacific. Post-tropical cyclone Mario fizzled out while other disturbances struggled against hostile winds. Most were unlikely to develop, and forecasts suggested a quieter end to September in the Pacific Basin. This contrasted with the Atlantic's more active season, highlighting the unique personalities of each ocean. Even in a lull, the potential for change remained, reminding us that the tropics are never truly quiet during hurricane season. September 2025 has redefined what autumn means in North America. The relentless heat wave, delayed fall cues, and violent storms have blurred the boundaries between seasons. Instead of a gentle transition, autumn is now a battleground of extremes: record heat, severe weather, and even early snows. The Atlantic's powerful hurricanes and the Pacific's quiet watchfulness are all part of this evolving climate story. These aren't isolated incidents, but symptoms of a planet in flux. Communities must adapt to longer, more volatile seasons and stay vigilant for threats that once seemed rare. The familiar rhythms of the past are fading, replaced by a new, unpredictable autumnal reality. Our challenge now is to understand, prepare, and adapt to the changing face of the seasons.